The silver blade kissed her throat and Sarah closed her eyes, not in fear, but in relief that the pain would finally end. Then the Alpha King's hand trembled, and the entire pack held its breath. Sarah had stopped praying 3 days ago. She'd stopped eating 2 days ago. This morning, she'd stopped hoping. Kneeling in the center of the execution circle with her wrists bound behind her back, she felt nothing but a hollow ache where her heart used to be. The crowd pressed in around her, 1,000 wolves come to watch justice served. Their hatred rolled over her in waves, thick enough to choke on. She didn't blame them. She'd killed their prince. That she'd had no choice didn't matter. That Prince Adrian had cornered her in the archives, that he tried to force a mate bond on her while she screamed for help, that his hands had torn at her clothes while his eyes gleamed with cruelty, none of that mattered to them. All they knew was their beloved prince lay dead, and she'd confessed to putting the knife in his chest. Alpha King Damon Frost stood before her now, the ceremonial blade gleaming in his hand. He was everything the stories promised, tall and broad-shouldered, with black hair and eyes like winter storms. Cold. Merciless. They said he'd executed his own father to take the throne. They said he felt nothing, cared for nothing except power and control. Sarah believed every word. Sarah Blackwood. His voice carried across the silent crowd, deep and commanding. You stand accused of murdering Prince Adrian Frost. You have confessed to this crime. Do you have any final words? She lifted her head, meeting those silver eyes for the first time. Up close, they weren't empty. They burned with something fierce and contained, like a wildfire trapped behind glass. Make it quick, she whispered. Her voice cracked. Please. Just make it quick. For 3 days, they'd kept her in the dungeons. For 3 days, she'd relived Adrian's attack every time she closed her eyes. The weight of his body. The smell of his breath. The way he'd laughed when she begged him to stop. She'd grabbed the letter opener from the desk without thinking, had driven it into his chest to make him let go, and then he was dead, and she was a murderer. She'd thought the hardest part would be dying. But the hardest part had been surviving long enough to reach this moment. The Alpha King raised the blade. Sunlight caught the silver edge, making it gleam. Sarah closed her eyes again. The blow never came. Instead, she heard something impossible, a low, rumbling growl from the Alpha King's chest. Not threatening. Confused. Almost anguished. Her eyes flew open. Damon Frost stood frozen above her, the blade trembling in his grip. He was staring at her like she'd just appeared out of thin air, like he was seeing her for the first time. His nostrils flared. That growl came again, deeper this time, and suddenly he dropped to one knee in front of her. Who hurt you? He demanded. His free hand caught her chin, tilting her face toward the light. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and she flinched. Who put these bruises on you? Sarah couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The entire crowd had gone silent, 1,000 wolves watching their king kneel before a condemned prisoner. Answer me. His voice had gone rough, almost desperate. Who hurt you? Your brother, she whispered. I told them. I told everyone. 3 days ago. His eyes tracked over her face, her throat, her torn dress. These bruises are 3 days old. Of course they were. She hadn't fought back until the very end. She'd tried to reason with Adrian first, had tried to escape, had only grabbed the letter opener when he'd pinned her against the desk and started tearing at her clothes. Damon's hand was still on her face, surprisingly gentle. Why didn't you fight him sooner? He was the prince. Her voice came out flat, dead. Who would have believed me? Something cracked in the Alpha King's expression. For just a moment, she saw past the cold mask to the man beneath, and what she found there stole her breath. Rage. Not at her. For her. Your Majesty. A tall man with sandy hair stepped forward, Marcus, the Beta. His face was tight with concern. The pack awaits your justice. Damon didn't look away from her. Tell me what happened. All of it. I already told. Tell me again. So she did. She told him about working late in the archives, about Adrian coming in and locking the door behind him. About his hands and his breath and his whispered promises that she'd learn to love being his mate. About the letter opener. About the blood. About how she'd known, even as Adrian fell, that no one would believe her. By the time she finished, Damon's entire body was shaking. His wolf was right there, pressing against his skin, and his eyes had gone pure silver. My king, Marcus said quietly. You must complete the execution. The pack. The pack, Damon said, his voice deadly soft, can wait. He stood, pulling Sarah to her feet with him. She swayed, weak from hunger and 3 days in the dungeon. His arm came around her waist, steadying her. I claim this woman as my personal prisoner, he announced to the crowd. She will remain in the castle under my direct supervision until I complete my investigation into Prince Adrian's death. The crowd erupted. Shouts of protest, of outrage. How dare he show mercy to their prince's killer? Where was the justice they'd been promised? Damon's power rolled out in a wave that sent every wolf in the circle to their knees. I am your Alpha King, he said, and his voice could have cut stone. You will trust my judgment, or you will challenge me for the throne. Anyone? Silence. No one was stupid enough to challenge Damon Frost. He turned to Marcus. Clear the circle. Now. Then he bent and swept Sarah into his arms like she weighed nothing. She was too shocked to protest, too exhausted to fight. Her head fell against his chest, and she heard his heart hammering beneath his shirt. Why? She managed to ask as he carried her toward the castle. Why would you spare me? His arms tightened around her. Because my brother was a monster, he said quietly. And because you smell like, he stopped himself, jaw clenching. Just rest. You're safe now. Safe. The word was absurd. She'd just been spared execution by the cruelest Alpha King in history, for reasons she couldn't begin to understand. Safe was the last thing she was. But as consciousness began to slip away, pulled under by exhaustion and shock, she found herself believing him anyway. Maybe that made her a fool. Or maybe, just maybe, it made her something else entirely. Sarah woke to softness. After 3 days on stone floors, the sensation was so foreign it took her a moment to identify it. A bed. She was in a bed. A large one, with silk sheets and pillows that smelled like pine and winter storms. She bolted upright, panic flooding her system. Easy. The Alpha King sat in a chair by the window, watching her. He'd changed out of his ceremonial clothes into simple black pants and a shirt with the sleeves rolled up. In the afternoon light, he looked younger than she'd expected. Maybe 30. And tired, like he carried weights she couldn't see. Where am I? My chambers. Her heart lurched. You'll stay here until I figure out what to do with you. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. My brother attacked you. You defended yourself. That's not murder. The law says a wolf has the right to defend themselves against forced claiming. His voice was hard. What Adrian tried to do to you is forbidden. Punishable by death. You saved me the trouble of executing him myself. Sarah stared at him. You would have killed your own brother? I've killed for less. The casual way he said it should have terrified her. Instead, she found herself studying him, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped his knees like he was holding himself back from something. Why did you spare me? She asked again. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because when I stood over you with that blade, my wolf went insane. Started howling that I couldn't hurt you, that you were. He stopped himself again, stood abruptly. It doesn't matter. The point is, you're innocent. Your pack doesn't think so. My pack will believe what I tell them to believe. He moved to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. There's food on the table. Clean clothes in the wardrobe. Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow. Your Majesty. Damon, he said roughly. Just call me Damon. Then he was gone, leaving Sarah alone in the Alpha King's chambers with more questions than answers and a strange, impossible flutter of hope in her chest. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The chain was silver. Sarah discovered this when she woke the second time and tried to leave the bed. The moment her feet touched the floor, pain lanced through her ankle, not burning, but a deep, nauseating ache that told her the metal was pure enough to weaken her wolf. She looked down. A delicate silver cuff circled her left ankle, attached to a long chain that disappeared under the massive bed. Beautiful, really. Ornate scrollwork decorated the metal, and the chain links were so fine they looked like jewelry. A gilded cage was still a cage. Good. You're awake. Sarah's head snapped up. Damon stood in the doorway with a tray of food, looking like he hadn't slept. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hair was disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. You chained me. Her voice came out flat. I chained you. He set the tray on the bedside table, fresh bread, cheese, sliced fruit, and what smelled like venison stew. Her stomach clenched with hunger, but she didn't reach for it. The chain is long enough to reach the bathroom and the sitting area. You won't be uncomfortable. Just imprisoned. You're a confessed killer in the Alpha King's private chambers. He pulled the chair closer to the bed and sat, studying her with those unsettling silver eyes. The chain protects both of us. My pack wants your head. Without it, they'd storm these rooms and tear you apart before I could stop them. So this is mercy. This is survival. He gestured to the food. Eat. You need your strength. She wanted to refuse out of spite, but 3 days of starvation had left her weak and shaking. She took the bowl of stew, forcing herself to eat slowly even though everything in her screamed to devour it. Damon watched her in silence. When she'd taken the edge off her hunger, he leaned forward. Tell me about my brother's trafficking ring. Sarah's spoon clattered into the bowl. I don't. Don't lie to me. His voice was soft, dangerous. Last night, I went through Kane's private chambers. I found ledgers, Sarah. Records of payments, shipments, girls' names. Dozens of them over the past 2 years. His hands clenched into fists. You weren't the first. Were you? The room tilted. She set the bowl aside before she dropped it. How did you know? She whispered. Your scent. He said it like a confession. When I stood over you in that execution circle, I caught something beneath the fear and exhaustion. The same thing I smelled on 3 other girls who disappeared from our pack over the last year. We thought they'd run away. Found their mates in other territories. His voice cracked. They didn't run, did they? Sarah's hands were shaking. She curled them into the silk sheets, anchoring herself. No, she said. They didn't run. 6 months earlier. Sarah had been working in the archives for 2 years when she first noticed Prince Kane watching her. It started small. A lingering glance when he passed through. Questions about her family, her friends, whether she had a mate. She'd been flattered at first, the prince, interested in a nobody like her. But then his attention grew more intense. More possessive. He started showing up at the archives when she worked late. Started finding excuses to be alone with her. And then one night, he brought her a gift, a beautiful silver bracelet. For you, he'd said, his smile charming but his eyes cold. A token of my appreciation for your hard work. She'd thanked him, tried to refuse, but he'd insisted on clasping it around her wrist himself. The moment the metal touched her skin, she'd felt wrong. Sick. She'd gone home and tried to take it off, only to discover it had no clasp. The next day, she'd gone to the pack healer. The old woman had taken one look at the bracelet and gone pale. "Where did you get this?" "Prince Cain gave it to me." The healer had gripped her hand, tight enough to hurt. "Listen to me carefully, child. This isn't a gift. It's a tracker. Old magic, dark magic. Whoever made this can feel where you are at all times." Sarah had felt the ground drop out from under her. "I don't understand." "Why would?" "Because you're being hunted." The healer had pulled her close, voice dropping to a whisper. "I've seen this twice before. 2 other girls, both wearing bracelets just like this. Both disappeared within a month. If the prince gave you this, you need to run. Tonight. Get as far from this territory as." The archive doors had slammed open. Cain had stood there with 3 guards, his expression pleasant but his eyes murderous. "There you are," he'd said to Sarah. "We need to talk." The healer had stepped between them. "The girl is under my care, Your Highness. She's not well enough for." Cain had backhanded her across the face. The old woman had hit the wall and slid down, unconscious. Sarah had run. She'd made it halfway across the castle grounds before the guards caught her. They'd dragged her to Cain's private study, thrown her to the floor at his feet. He'd crouched down, gripping her face with bruising fingers. "Did you really think you could escape?" he'd murmured. "Sweet Sarah. You're mine. I've already sold you to the Northern Pack. They've paid handsomely for an unmated female with your bloodline. You should be grateful, they'll treat you better than you deserve." "Sold?" She'd stared at him in horror. "You're trafficking pack members?" "I'm making strategic alliances." He'd stood, straightening his jacket. "The North needs breeding stock. We need their military support. Everyone wins. I'm not stock. I'm a person. You're a resource." His voice had gone cold. "And you belong to me until I deliver you next month. Try to run again, and I'll make sure every moment of your remaining time here is agony." He'd kept his word. For 3 weeks, she'd been a prisoner in the castle, moved between locked rooms, watched constantly. The other girls he'd sold, she'd learned their names, their fates. Most had been delivered to other packs as promised. 2 had tried to fight and been killed. 1 had killed herself rather than be shipped off like cattle. Sarah had decided she'd rather die fighting. The night Cain came for her in the archives was supposed to be her delivery night. She'd known it was her last chance. When he'd started forcing the mate bond, a final cruelty, wanting to mark her as his before handing her over, she'd grabbed the letter opener without thinking. She'd aimed for his heart and hit true. "Goddess above," Damon breathed when she finished. His face had gone gray. 3 weeks. He kept you prisoner for 3 weeks, and no one noticed? He told people I was visiting family. Sarah's voice was hollow. Who would question a prince? I would have. I should have. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. I'm his brother. I should have seen. He slammed his fist against the window frame hard enough to crack the wood. How many, Sarah? How many girls did he sell? I counted 14 names in his ledger. But there were pages torn out. There might have been more. Damon's shoulders bowed like he was carrying the weight of mountains. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. After our parents were massacred, Cain was all I had left. We were 12 years old, covered in our mother's blood, and the pack wanted to kill us for being the old alpha spawn. We survived together. Built this pack together. He turned to face her, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I overlooked his cruelty because I thought it was strength. I ignored his coldness because I thought it was control. I was so focused on being the alpha king everyone feared that I didn't see what he'd become. You didn't know, Sarah said quietly. I should have. He crossed back to her, dropping to his knees beside the bed so they were eye level. I failed those girls. I failed you. And I can't, his voice broke. I can't bring them back. Can't undo what he did. But I can make sure the bastards who helped him pay for it. Sarah went still. What? Cain couldn't have done this alone. Damon pulled a folded paper from his pocket, hands shaking slightly as he opened it. The ledger shows payments from 5 different packs, but the transactions were coordinated through someone in our council. Someone who arranged the transfers, forged the travel documents, made the girls disappear without raising suspicion. He looked up at her. Someone who's still here. Still in power. Still operating. Cold dread washed through her. You think they'll keep trafficking? I know they will. Cain is dead, but the network isn't. He held out the paper, a page from the ledger, covered in coded notations. I need your help, Sarah. You worked in the archives. You know how to read old records, track bloodlines, decode formal pact documents. These notations reference someone on the council, but I can't figure out who. She stared at the paper like it might bite her. Why would I help you? Your brother tortured me. Your pack wants me dead. For all I know, you're working with whoever did this. If I were working with them, you'd already be dead. His voice was blunt but not unkind. I'm asking because you're the only person I can trust. Everyone else on my council is a suspect. My beta, my advisors, even my head of security, any of them could be the traitor. He leaned closer, and she caught his scent again, pine and winter storms, but underneath, something wounded. You want justice for what Cain did to you? Help me find his accomplice. Help me burn this network to the ground. Sarah studied him. Really looked at him for the first time since waking. He was younger than she'd thought, barely 30, probably. But his eyes were ancient, carved with pain that had nothing to do with recent events. And now that she was paying attention, she saw other things too. The way he held himself perfectly still, like movement required conscious effort. The faint scars on his knuckles, too precise to be from training. The careful distance he maintained, even kneeling beside her bed, close enough to talk, far enough that she wouldn't feel trapped. The silver cuff around her ankle suddenly felt like less of a threat and more of a protection. Not to keep her contained, but to keep others out. You're afraid of them, she realized. Your own pack. Something flickered in his expression. I'm not afraid. Liar. She tilted her head, studying him. You're afraid they'll kill me if you show weakness. Afraid they'll see sparing me as a sign you've gone soft. Her voice dropped. What did they do to you, Damon? What made you so scared of being seen as anything less than a monster? His jaw clenched. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he stood and turned away, pulling his shirt over his head in one fluid motion. Sarah's breath caught. His back was a map of scars. Not the random marks of battle, but deliberate patterns, carved symbols, words she couldn't quite read. Someone had taken their time with him. Made him suffer. When I was 13, he said quietly, 3 council members decided I was too young to rule. They locked me in the dungeons for 6 months. Took turns reminding me what happened to weak alphas. He pulled his shirt back on, movements mechanical. I survived by becoming exactly what they feared. Cold. Merciless. The kind of king who executes first and asks questions never. He turned to face her. I've been playing that role for 17 years. And you're right, I'm terrified. Because the moment I show mercy, the moment I choose justice over vengeance, they'll see weakness. And they'll come for me. They'll come for both of us, Sarah corrected. Yes. He didn't sugarcoat it. If you help me, you'll be painting a target on your back. The traitor will know you're a threat. They'll try to kill you. They're already trying to kill me. At least this way, I'll see them coming. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Is that a yes? Sarah looked down at the ledger page. At the coded notations that represented girls like her, Girls who'd been sold, trafficked, erased. At the proof that somewhere in the castle, a monster walked free while she wore chains. She thought about the old healer who'd tried to warn her and gotten backhanded for her trouble. About the 2 girls who'd fought and died. About the one who'd killed herself rather than become property. "I want this chain removed," she said. "When I know you're safe. I want it removed now." She met his eyes. "If we're going to work together, I need you to trust me. And I can't trust someone who keeps me leashed like an animal." Damon studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled a key from his pocket and knelt beside the bed again. His hands were gentle as he unlocked the cuff, careful not to brush her skin. The moment the silver fell away, Sarah felt her wolf surge back to full strength. She could run now. Could fight. Could do any number of stupid things that would get her killed. Instead, she reached for the ledger page. "Show me the rest," she said. "Show me everything you found." Damon's eyes widened slightly. Then he pulled out a thick folder from inside his jacket and handed it over. As Sarah began sorting through the documents, she felt him watching her. Not with suspicion or hunger, but with something that looked almost like hope. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked without looking up. "You could have executed me and dealt with the trafficking quietly. Why risk your reputation?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because when I stood over you with that blade, my wolf recognized you. Not as a mate," he said it quickly, firmly. "But as something. Pack, maybe. Or just, someone worth saving." He stood, moving toward the door. "I've spent 17 years being the monster they needed. Maybe it's time I tried being the king they deserve." He left before she could respond, closing the door softly behind him. Sarah sat in the enormous bed, surrounded by silk sheets and evidence of atrocities, and realized she'd just made a deal with the devil himself. The question was whether he'd save her or damn her. Or maybe, just maybe, they'd save each other. Outside the window, storm clouds gathered. In the castle halls, a traitor walked free. And in the Alpha King's chambers, a broken girl and a broken king began planning their war. Neither of them noticed the shadow that slipped away from the door. The figure who'd been listening. The council member who now knew exactly how dangerous Sarah Blackwood had become. The hunt was on. And this time, the prey was fighting back. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. The council chamber felt like a tomb. Sarah stood beside Damon's throne, not behind it, he'd insisted, but beside it, and tried not to flinch under the weight of 40 pairs of hostile eyes. The council members sat in a semicircle below the raised platform, each one radiating disapproval like heat from a forge. Marcus stood at the front, his expression carefully neutral but his jaw tight enough to crack teeth. "You cannot be serious," Councilman Thorne said, his jowls quivering with indignation. He was a thick-set man in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of face that had forgotten how to smile decades ago. "This woman murdered Prince Cain. She confessed. And now you want us to accept her as a guest in the castle?" "Not a guest," Damon corrected, his voice dangerously soft. "An advisor. Miss Blackwood has expertise in pack archives and bloodline records. She'll be assisting with a project of utmost importance to the kingdom's security." "What project?" Councilwoman Rhodes demanded. She was younger than Thorne, sharp-featured and sharper-voiced, with cold blue eyes that reminded Sarah of ice picks. "What could possibly be so important that you'd spare a confessed killer?" Damon leaned forward slightly, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "The project is classified. You'll be briefed when appropriate." "Your Majesty," Thorne began. "Are you questioning my judgment, Councilman?" The silence that followed was brittle enough to shatter. Thorne's face turned an interesting shade of purple, but he dropped his gaze first. "Of course not, Your Majesty." "Good. Damon stood, and Sarah felt his hand brush the small of her back, a brief, steadying touch that shouldn't have sent electricity racing up her spine. Miss Blackwood will attend all council meetings and PAC social functions as my personal advisor. She will be treated with the same respect you'd show any member of my inner circle. Anyone who harms her or threatens her in any way will answer to me personally. Are we clear? A chorus of reluctant agreements echoed through the chamber. As they filed out, Sarah caught Marcus watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Not quite hostile, but not friendly either. Assessing. Like he was trying to figure out what game she was playing. She wished she knew herself. That went better than expected, Damon said once they were alone in his study. He poured himself a measure of whiskey, then raised the bottle in question. Please. Sarah collapsed into one of the leather chairs by the fireplace. Her legs were shaking from standing so long. 3 days of imprisonment had left her weaker than she'd realized. He poured her a glass and settled into the chair opposite, studying her over the rim of his drink. You held up well in there. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of scrutiny. Most people haven't spent 3 weeks being held prisoner by a psychopath. She took a long drink, savoring the burn. Your counsel hates me. They don't trust you. There's a difference. And you do? Trust me? Damon was quiet for a moment, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. I trust that you want the same thing I do. Justice. Vengeance. An end to this nightmare. He met her eyes. That's enough for now. For now, she echoed. What about later? When we find the traitor and expose the trafficking ring? What happens to me then? Then you'll be free. He said it simply, like it was obvious. You can stay here under my protection, or I'll arrange safe passage to any PAC you choose. New identity, new life. Whatever you need to start over. The offer should have filled her with relief. Instead, something twisted in her chest, something that felt uncomfortably like disappointment. Just like that? You'll let me go? You were never truly a prisoner, Sarah. His voice went soft. The chain was for show, to appease the PAC. But the moment I removed it, you could have run. Could have tried to kill me, even. You stayed because you chose to. Because I want justice. Because you're brave enough to stand beside a monster if it means saving others from suffering what you did. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Don't diminish that. Don't diminish yourself. Sarah's throat felt tight. She looked away, focusing on the fire crackling in the hearth. Tell me about the project. What exactly are we looking for? Damon pulled out the ledger pages they'd been studying. Kane used coded notations for his transactions. Most are straightforward, dates, prices, PAC names. But these here, he pointed to a series of symbols in the margins. These reference someone internal. Someone who had access to PAC seals, travel documents, official correspondence. Someone on the council. Or in the administrative offices. Maybe both. He spread the pages across the low table between them. I've been comparing the notation patterns to council attendance records, looking for correlations. But there are too many variables. I need someone who understands how the archive systems work, how documents are processed and filed. Sarah set down her glass and pulled the pages closer, studying them in the firelight. The notations were complex, combinations of numbers and symbols that looked random at first glance. But as she traced the patterns, something nagged at her memory. Wait. She grabbed a blank piece of paper and started sketching. These aren't random. They're catalog codes. Damon leaned in, close enough that she could feel his warmth. Catalog codes? From the archive system. Every document gets assigned a code based on its type, date, and filing location. Her hand moved quickly, translating symbols into numbers. See this sequence? That's the code for travel authorizations. And this one is for bloodline certificates. Whoever made these notations had intimate knowledge of the archive filing system. Who has that kind of access? The head archivist, obviously. But also anyone who works in records management. That's at least a dozen people. Can you narrow it down? She chewed her lip, thinking. Maybe. If I can access the archive logs, see who pulled documents during the dates these transactions occurred. She looked up at him. I'd need to go back to the archives. Work there like I used to. Absolutely not. His response was immediate, hard. You'd be exposed. Vulnerable. I'd be doing my job. No one would question it if you reinstated me as an archivist. No. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The traitor knows you survived. Knows you're helping me. They'll be watching for any opportunity to eliminate you. Then we'll never find them. Sarah stood too, moving to face him. Damon, I can't solve this from your study. I need access to the archives, the records, the physical documents. I need to see who's been in and out, what they were looking at, how they covered their tracks. And if they kill you while you're there? Then you find another way. She kept her voice steady, even though her heart was hammering. But I don't think they will. Not immediately. They'll want to know what I've found first, what I've told you. They'll watch and wait for an opening. That's not reassuring. It's realistic. She touched his arm, felt the muscle tense under her fingers. I survived your brother for 3 weeks. I can handle a few trips to the archives. He looked down at her hand on his arm, something unreadable flickering across his face. You're not invincible, Sarah. And he stopped himself, jaw clenching. I've already failed to protect too many people. I won't add you to that list. The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. You're not failing me. You're giving me a chance to fight back. There's a difference. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he covered her hand with his, the touch sending warmth racing through her veins. 3 conditions, he said finally. 1, you never go to the archives alone. Marcus or one of my personal guards accompanies you at all times. 2, you report anything suspicious immediately. And 3, his grip tightened slightly. You don't take unnecessary risks. If something feels wrong, you leave. No heroics. No heroics, she agreed. But I reserve the right to necessary risks. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. You're going to be the death of me. Better me than the traitor. This time he did smile, a real one that transformed his face from coldly handsome to devastating. Sarah's breath caught. She'd been so focused on surviving, on the investigation, that she hadn't let herself fully register how attractive he was when he wasn't being the terrifying Alpha King. Dangerous territory, her wolf whispered. This male is dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with power. She pulled her hand back, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. I should rest. We have the pack dinner tomorrow night, and I need to look presentable if I'm going to be your special advisor. About that. Damon moved to his desk, pulling out a small velvet box. You'll need this. Inside was a silver pendant, a wolf's head with moonstone eyes, hanging from a delicate chain. The craftsmanship was exquisite, clearly ancient. It's beautiful, she breathed. It was my mother's. He lifted the necklace carefully, the metal gleaming in the firelight. She wore it to every formal event. It marks the wearer as under the Alpha's direct protection. No one will dare touch you while you're wearing this. Sarah's throat went tight. Damon, I can't. Yes, you can. He moved behind her, and she felt his hands brush her neck as he fastened the clasp. His fingers were warm against her skin, gentle in a way that made her shiver. You're risking your life to help me. The least I can do is give you every protection I can offer. She touched the pendant, feeling its weight settle against her collarbone. Thank you. His hands lingered for just a moment, then fell away. Try to get some sleep. Tomorrow will be challenging. That, Sarah thought as she returned to her rooms, was probably the understatement of the century. The pack dinner was held in the Grand Hall, a cavernous space with vaulted ceilings, massive chandeliers, and enough for 300 wolves. Sarah stood at Damon's side in a midnight blue gown that had been delivered to her rooms that afternoon, along with a note in strong, angular handwriting. Wear this. It matches your eyes. D. Every eye in the hall was on her. Whispering rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. That's her. The one who killed Prince Cain. Why is she wearing the Queen's pendant? Did you hear? She's living in the King's chambers. Sarah lifted her chin and met their stares head-on. Let them whisper. Let them judge. She'd survived worse than their gossip. Damon's hand settled on her lower back again, that same steadying touch from the council meeting. Ignore them, he murmured. They'll find something else to talk about by next week. Like your inappropriate relationship with a murderer? His fingers flexed slightly against her spine. Careful. Someone might think you're developing a sense of humor. Despite everything, she almost laughed. The dinner was an elaborate affair, 7 courses, each paired with wine, accompanied by speeches and toasts. Sarah sat at the high table beside Damon, painfully aware of the scrutiny. Marcus sat on Damon's other side, his expression neutral but his tension palpable. Halfway through the 4th course, Councilwoman Rhodes approached with a predatory smile. Miss Blackwood. How lovely to see you looking so healthy. Given recent events. Councilwoman. Sarah kept her voice pleasant. Thank you for your concern. I simply wanted to express my curiosity about your new position. Rhodes's smile didn't reach her eyes. It's quite unusual for His Majesty to take on an advisor so informally. Usually such appointments require council approval. The king has the authority to appoint advisors as he sees fit, Damon said coolly. Or has that changed recently? Of course not, Your Majesty. I simply wonder what expertise Miss Blackwood brings that our current archivists lack. She brings perspective. Damon's voice went soft, dangerous. Something I'm finding increasingly valuable. Rhodes's smile tightened. Of course. Well, I do hope your perspective proves useful, Miss Blackwood. It would be a shame if your appointment were seen as anything other than professional. She glided away, leaving a chill in her wake. She's one of them, Sarah whispered. Has to be. That was a threat wrapped in courtesy. Rhodes has been on the council for 15 years. She was one of the ones who, Damon stopped abruptly, jaw clenching. Who what? Nothing. It doesn't matter. But Sarah remembered his scarred back, the careful way he'd said 3 council members. She was one of the ones who tortured you. Wasn't she? His silence was answer enough. Damon. Later. His hand found hers under the table, squeezing briefly. We'll talk later. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. More courses, more speeches, more hostile stares. By the time the final toast was made, to the Alpha King's continued reign, Sarah's face hurt from maintaining a pleasant expression. They were walking back to Damon's study when Marcus caught up to them. Your Majesty. A word? Damon glanced at Sarah. Go ahead to the study. I'll be there in a moment. She wanted to argue, but the look on Marcus's face suggested this wasn't a conversation she should witness. She nodded and continued down the corridor, the Queen's pendant heavy against her skin. Behind her, she heard Marcus's low voice. You're playing a dangerous game, Damon. The pack is already questioning your judgment. If they think you're involved with her. What I am or am not involved with is none of their concern. Everything you do is their concern. You're the Alpha King. You don't have the luxury of. Their voices faded as Sarah turned a corner. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart race. Involved. Was that what they were becoming? Was that why she couldn't stop thinking about the way his hands felt against her skin, the warmth in his eyes when he looked at her? Dangerous. This was so dangerous. She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice the figure stepping out of the shadows ahead. Almost. Sarah spun, dropping into a defensive crouch, but she was weak from days of imprisonment and the figure was fast. Something pricked her neck, a sharp, burning pain that spread like wildfire through her veins. Message from a friend, a hooded figure whispered. Stop investigating, or next time it won't be a warning. Then they were gone, melting back into the shadows like smoke. Sarah stumbled forward, vision swimming. Her wolf was howling, trying to fight off whatever poison was coursing through her system, but it was strong. Too strong. She made it 3 more steps before her legs gave out. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was Damon's roar of rage, felt his arms catching her before she hit the floor. Then nothing. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. Sarah woke to the smell of wolfsbane and the sound of Damon cursing. Her eyes cracked open to find herself in his bed, the massive 4-poster in his private chambers, with every candle in the room lit. Damon sat beside her, pressing a cloth to her neck where she'd been injected, his face drawn with worry. Don't move, he said when she tried to sit up. The healer said the poison needs time to work through your system. What happened? Her voice came out as a croak. You were dosed with a concentrated wolfsbane solution. Enough to kill a normal wolf. His jaw clenched. Your bloodline must be stronger than average. You survived what should have been fatal. Memory flooded back, the hooded figure, the burning pain, the whispered warning. They said to stop investigating. Said it was a warning. A warning. Damon's voice went deadly quiet. They poisoned you and called it a warning. At least now we know we're getting close. She managed to sit up despite his protests, the room spinning slightly. They're scared. Making mistakes. You almost died, Sarah. But I didn't. She touched his hand, feeling the tremor in his fingers. I'm fine. You're not fine. He stopped, closing his eyes. When I saw you collapse, when I thought, he couldn't finish the sentence. Something warm bloomed in Sarah's chest. She turned his hand over, lacing their fingers together. Hey. I'm okay. We're okay. He opened his eyes, and the raw emotion there stole her breath. Not just worry. Something deeper, more dangerous. Something that made her wolf sing with recognition. Damon. The door burst open. Marcus strode in, took one look at their joined hands, and his expression went from concern to thunderous. The healer said she was awake. His voice was carefully controlled. I need to speak with you, Your Majesty. Alone. Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of Sarah. Can I? Marcus's eyes were hard. Because what I need to say is that you're making a catastrophic mistake. The pack is already questioning your judgment. You spare her life, move her into your chambers, parade her around as your advisor, and now she's in your bed. She was poisoned, Marcus. I don't care if she was crowned by the moon goddess herself. Marcus's control finally cracked. You're the Alpha King. Your duty is to the pack, not to one damaged female who. Damon was off the bed and in his beta's face before Sarah could blink, moving with lethal speed. Choose your next words very carefully. Marcus held his ground, though his wolf was clearly screaming at him to submit. I'm your beta. Your friend. And I'm telling you that you're compromised. Whatever you feel for her has nothing to do with my ability to rule. Doesn't it? Marcus's voice dropped. When was the last time you made a decision based on logic rather than protecting her? When was the last time you considered what's best for the pack instead of what keeps her safe? Silence fell like a blade. Sarah forced herself to stand, legs still shaky. He's right. Both males turned to stare at her. Sarah, Damon began. No, he is. She looked at Marcus. You think I'm a distraction. A weakness. And maybe you're right. But I'm also the only person who can identify the traitor, and we're running out of time. She moved to the desk where they'd spread the archive documents. I've been comparing the catalog codes to access logs. There's a pattern. Someone's been pulling specific bloodline records over the past decade, always during full moons, always using emergency override codes. Damon was beside her in an instant. Show me. She pointed to the list she'd compiled. These families. 17 of them. All had daughters who disappeared over the past 10 years. And all of them, every single one, share a common ancestor from 300 years ago. What ancestor? Lioness Silvermoon. Sarah's hands trembled as she traced the bloodline chart. The original Alpha Queen, from before the Pack Wars. According to legend, her line was wiped out during the massacres. But these families all carry her DNA markers. Distant, diluted, but present. Marcus leaned over the documents, frowning. Why would someone target Silvermoon descendants? Because Silvermoon wolves have special gifts. Damon's voice had gone quiet. My mother told me the stories when I was young. They could heal with touch, sense lies, sometimes even see the future. The other packs feared them, thought they were witches. That's why they were hunted to extinction. Except they weren't extinct. Sarah met his eyes. They just went into hiding. Scattered across different packs, diluted their bloodlines enough to hide the markers. But someone knew. Someone's been systematically eliminating them. The girls Kane trafficked, Damon breathed. They weren't random. No. They were targeted. Morgana, Sarah stopped, the name clicking into place like a key in a lock. Lady Morgana. She's the one with emergency override access to the archives. She's been on the council for 30 years. And Sarah's blood ran cold. She was there. 300 years ago, her family led the purge against the Silvermoons. My aunt? Damon's face had gone ashen. You think my aunt is behind this? I think she's been finishing what her ancestors started. Sarah's voice shook. I think she's been hunting Silvermoon descendants for decades, and I think, her wolf suddenly howled, a sound of recognition and terror. I think my parents were Silvermoons. I think that's why they died. The room tilted. Damon caught her as her legs gave out again, pulling her against his chest. The accident, she whispered. When I was 8. The car went off a cliff. They said it was mechanical failure, but memories surfaced, ones she'd buried deep. Her mother's last words, whispered as she'd strapped Sarah into a safety harness before pushing her out the door. Run, little moon. Run and hide your light. Goddess above, Marcus breathed. If Sarah's a Silvermoon, then she's the primary target. Damon's arms tightened around her. And we've been playing right into Morgana's hands. The full moon ceremony was held in the ancient stone circle at the heart of Pack lands. Every wolf in the territory was required to attend, a monthly gathering where disputes were settled, bonds were witnessed, and the Pack reaffirmed their loyalty to the Alpha. Sarah stood beside Damon on the raised dais, wearing a white ceremonial gown that marked her as under the Alpha's protection. The Queen's pendant gleamed at her throat. Around them, hundreds of wolves gathered, their faces painted silver by moonlight. Lady Morgana stood at the front of the council delegation, her expression serene. She was a handsome woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked black hair and Damon's same cold gray eyes. She'd been nothing but polite to Sarah over the past week, nothing but supportive of Damon's investigation. The perfect mask. We don't have proof, Marcus had argued before the ceremony. Just theories and bloodline charts. If we accuse her publicly and we're wrong. We're not wrong, Sarah had said. I can feel it. My wolf knows. Now, watching Morgana smile and bow to the crowd, Sarah felt her wolf snarling beneath her skin. Murderer. Killer. She killed our parents. Damon began the ceremony, his voice carrying across the circle. Brothers and sisters of the Frost Pack. We gather under the full moon to honor our bonds, settle our disputes, and strengthen our unity. The traditional words, spoken at every ceremony for generations. Sarah barely heard them. She was watching Morgana, watching the way the woman's eyes kept drifting to her, assessing, calculating. Before we proceed, Damon continued, I have a matter of grave importance to address. He pulled out the documents they'd compiled. For the past decade, someone in our pack has been systematically targeting and eliminating wolves from specific bloodlines. Girls have disappeared. Families have been destroyed. And the perpetrator has been standing right beside you this entire time. The voice came from Morgana, but it was different now. Colder. The pleasant mask had fallen away, revealing something ancient and cruel beneath. The crowd erupted in confusion. Marcus moved to stand beside Damon, hand on his weapon. But Morgana just laughed. Oh, nephew. Did you really think you could outmaneuver me? I've been planning this for 30 years. Since the day your mother threatened to expose what my family did during the purge. She gestured casually, and 6 guards stepped forward, wolves Sarah recognized from the castle, all wearing the same cold expressions. I've been very patient. Waiting for the right moment. And now, finally, the last silver moon has revealed herself. Sarah's blood turned to ice. You see, Morgana continued, moving closer, your little investigation led you exactly where I wanted you to go. Every document you found, every connection you made, I left them there for you. Because I needed to be certain. Her eyes locked on Sarah. Needed to know if you were just another deluded descendant, or if you were one of the true-blooded ones. The ones with real power. What are you talking about? Damon's voice was deadly quiet. I'm talking about the fact that your precious advisor is the last direct descendant of Lioness Silvermoon herself. Pure bloodline, untainted by common wolf DNA. Morgana's smile widened. I've spent decades eliminating the deluded ones. But the true-blooded Silvermoons? They're special. They're dangerous. And they're the only ones who can challenge my family's right to rule. You're insane, Sarah breathed. Am I? Your parents thought the same thing. Right up until I drove their car off that cliff. Morgana tilted her head. They were hiding you, you know. Suppressing your gifts, teaching you to be ordinary. But I knew. I always knew. So I killed them and waited for you to manifest. Waited for you to show me what you could really do. Rage exploded through Sarah like wildfire. Her wolf surged forward, power crackling along her skin. And suddenly she was glowing. Silver light poured from her skin, bright enough to make the crowd gasp and shield their eyes. She felt something unlock inside her, something that had been bound tight since childhood, and power flooded through her veins like liquid moonlight. There it is, Morgana whispered. The Silvermoon gift. Beautiful, isn't it? Damon moved to stand in front of Sarah, protective. Whatever you're planning, it ends now. You're under arrest for what? Cleaning up a genetic aberration? Morgana laughed. The council supports me, nephew. The pack supports me. They've been waiting for a reason to remove you from power ever since you showed mercy to this murderer. She snapped her fingers, and suddenly wolves throughout the crowd began to collapse. Dozens of them. All wearing the royal bloodline's colors. What did you do? Damon's voice shook with fury. Silver poisoning. Slow acting, undetectable until it's too late. Every member of the royal line, except you, dear nephew, has been poisoned over the past month. Food, water, even the wine at your precious dinner. Morgana examined her nails casually. They have maybe 3 days before the silver reaches their hearts. Then they'll die, one by one, and there will be no one left to challenge my claim to the throne. Marcus was already moving, checking the fallen wolves. She's telling the truth. They're all showing signs of silver toxicity. There's no cure, Morgana continued. No healer strong enough to purge that much silver from that many wolves. Unless. She turned her cold smile on Sarah. Unless you have a true mate bond. The kind that can heal anything. The kind that requires a sacred oath under the full moon. Sarah's stomach dropped. Abdicate the throne to me, Morgana said to Daemon, and I'll provide the antidote I've been holding in reserve. Refuse, and watch your entire bloodline die in agony. Your choice, Alpha King. The crowd was in chaos now, wolves shouting, trying to reach the collapsed royals. Marcus was barking orders, but there were too many victims, too much confusion. Daemon's face had gone blank, the way it did when he was calculating odds. Sarah could see him weighing options, running through scenarios. They were all bad. There's another option, Sarah said quietly. Daemon's head snapped toward her. No. You need a mate bond to heal them. Someone with strong enough bloodline power to purge silver from multiple wolves simultaneously. She stepped forward, letting the silver light still flowing from her skin illuminate her words. I'm a true-blooded silvermoon. If anyone can do it, I can. Forced mate bonds are fatal more often than not, Daemon said desperately. You could die. Your entire family will definitely die if we do nothing. She turned to face him fully, taking his hands. Let me try. Let me save them. Sarah. I'm choosing this. Just like I chose to stay. Just like I chose to help you. She squeezed his hands. Let me choose this too. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then something shifted in his expression, resignation, determination, and underneath it all, something that looked terrifyingly like love. The moon goddess ritual, he said hoarsely. Are you sure? I'm sure. Morgana's laugh rang out. Oh, this is delicious. The last silvermoon, bonding herself to the frost line. Your ancestors are weeping, girl. My ancestors, Sarah said coldly, would be proud that I'm using my gifts to save innocent lives. Something your family clearly knows nothing about. She turned to the crowd, to the ancient altar stone at the center of the circle. The moon goddess ritual was sacred, witnessed only under the full moon, and absolutely binding. Once completed, there was no breaking a true mate bond. But that was the point. Daemon followed her to the altar, his hand finding hers. Marcus brought the ceremonial blade, silver, of course, because the moon goddess demanded sacrifice along with oath. Are you absolutely certain? Daemon whispered as they knelt together. Once we do this, there's no going back. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. At the male who'd spared her life when he should have ended it. Who'd removed her chains when she asked. Who'd given her his mother's pendant and trusted her with his darkest secrets. Who sat alone at night, haunted by the lives he'd failed to save, and who was willing to sacrifice his throne to protect his family. I'm certain, she said. And realized, with a jolt that shook her to her core, that she meant it. Not just because of the dying wolves. Not just because of justice or vengeance. But because somewhere in the past week, she'd fallen for the broken king who'd seen past her crimes to the survivor beneath. Daemon must have seen it in her eyes, because his expression cracked open, showing everything he'd been holding back. Hope. Fear. Need. Love. Then let's begin, he said roughly. The ritual was ancient, the words in a language older than the modern pacts. Daemon spoke them first, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I offer my blood to the moon, my soul to the bond, my life to my mate. From this night forward, we are one. He drew the silver blade across his palm, blood welling dark. Then he offered the knife to Sarah. Her hand shook as she took it. The silver burned against her skin, but she forced herself to make the cut, felt her blood spill hot across her palm. I offer my blood to the moon, she repeated, my soul to the bond, my life to my mate. From this night forward, we are one. They pressed their bleeding palms together. And the world exploded. Power erupted from their joined hands, not just silver light now, but something else. Something ancient and vast and impossibly strong. It poured through Sarah like lightning, like fire, like the moon itself had reached down to touch them. The crowd gasped. Marcus stumbled backward. Even Morgana's confident expression flickered with shock. Because this wasn't just a mate bond forming. This was recognition. The moon goddess herself, acknowledging what had been hidden for generations, what had been suppressed and buried and nearly destroyed. Sarah wasn't just a Silvermoon descendant. She was the true Alpha heir. Equal in power to Daemon. Perhaps even stronger. The silver light blazing from her skin intensified until it was blinding, and she felt herself rising, being lifted by the power flowing through her veins. Her wolf surged forward, massive and silver white, and when she opened her eyes, she saw through doubled vision. Human and wolf. Alpha and Silvermoon. Past and present merging into one. Heal them, something whispered in her mind. Not Daemon, though she could feel him now, feel his presence like a second heartbeat. This was older. Deeper. Heal them, daughter of the moon. Show them what your bloodline was meant for. Sarah raised her free hand, still joined to Daemon's by their bleeding palms, and released the power building inside her. Silver light exploded outward in a wave, washing over the collapsed wolves. Where it touched, the silver poisoning dissolved like smoke in wind. Within seconds, they were stirring, groaning, sitting up with confused expressions. Healed. All of them. Completely. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Impossible, Morgana breathed. The Silvermoon power you shouldn't be able to. I'm the Alpha heir, Sarah said, and her voice echoed with power. Direct descendant of Lioness Silvermoon and her mate, the first Alpha King. My bloodline didn't die in the purges. It hid. Waited. And now, she turned to face Morgana fully, still blazing with silver light. Now it's going to end yours. Morgana's mask finally shattered completely. She snarled, her wolf surging forward, and lunged. But Daemon was faster. He moved like liquid shadow, intercepting his aunt mid-leap, driving her to the ground with brutal efficiency. His alpha power crashed over the circle like a tidal wave, forcing every wolf except Sarah to their knees. Morgana Frost, he said, his voice resonating with command, you are guilty of treason, murder, and trafficking in pack members. You've confessed before witnesses. The sentence is death. You can't. Morgana struggled against his grip. The council. The council, Daemon said coldly, doesn't outrank the moon goddess. And she's already passed judgment. He looked at Sarah, and through their bond, she felt his question. Felt him asking if she wanted this, if she wanted him to be the one to end it. But this wasn't his burden to carry. It was hers. Let me, she said quietly. Daemon hesitated, then nodded and stepped back. Sarah approached Morgana, the female who'd killed her parents, who'd hunted her bloodline for decades, who'd tried to eliminate everything Sarah was. You were right about one thing, Sarah said. My ancestors are watching. And they're proud. She placed her hand on Morgana's forehead, feeling the silver power humming beneath her skin. Not because I'm taking revenge. But because I'm choosing mercy. Morgana's eyes widened. What? I strip you of your wolf, Sarah said, and felt the ancient words rise from somewhere deep inside her, somewhere that remembered how this was done. I sever your connection to the pack, to the moon, to everything that makes you one of us. You'll live, Morgana. But you'll live as a human. Alone. Remembering everything you've lost. Silver light poured from her hand into Morgana's skull. The woman screamed, a sound of pure agony, and then silence. Morgana collapsed, breathing but unconscious. And when she woke, she'd be human. Powerless. No longer a threat. Sarah stepped back, suddenly exhausted. The silver light faded from her skin, and she swayed. Daemon caught her, pulling her against his chest. Through their bond, she felt his pride, his awe, his love crashing over her in waves. "My mate," he whispered against her hair. "My equal. My Luna. Luna." The words settled over her like a crown. The crowd was silent, processing everything they'd witnessed. Then, slowly, Marcus dropped to one knee. Then another wolf. Then another. Within moments, the entire pack was kneeling, bowing to their Alpha King and their new Luna, the Silver Moon heir who'd returned from extinction to save them all. "Long live the Alpha King," someone called. "Long live the Luna," another voice answered. The chant grew, spreading through the crowd like wildfire until the entire pack was shouting it, their voices raised to the moon. Sarah looked up at Damon, saw her own wonder reflected in his eyes. "So," she managed. "This is what choosing feels like." He laughed, the sound breaking something open inside her, and kissed her, deep and claiming and full of promise. The pack cheered. The moon shone silver overhead. And somewhere in the shadows at the edge of the circle, a hooded figure watched and smiled before melting away into the darkness. Morgana had been stopped. But the war for the Silvermoon bloodline was just beginning. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The attack came 3 nights after the full moon ceremony. Sarah woke to the sound of screaming and the acrid smell of smoke. She was on her feet before her eyes fully opened, the mate bond thrumming with Damon's alarm even before he burst through the door. "They're burning the East Wing." His voice was controlled, but she felt his rage through their connection. Morgana's loyalists. At least 50 of them, maybe more. Sarah was already pulling on clothes, her wolf surging beneath her skin. The hostages from the ceremony. Secured in the dungeons. Marcus has them under guard. Damon strapped on his weapons with practiced efficiency. But intelligence says Morgana escaped during the transfer. She's out there somewhere, rallying her forces. Then we end this tonight. He paused, looking at her. Through their bond, she felt his concern, his desperate need to keep her safe. But she also felt something else, trust. Hard-won, precious trust that she could handle whatever came next. "Together," he said. "Together," she agreed. They moved through the castle like shadows, their bond allowing them to coordinate without words. Sarah could feel where Damon was at all times, sense his intentions before he acted. And he could feel her too, feel the silver power humming beneath her skin, ready to be unleashed. The East Wing was chaos. Flames licked up the ancient tapestries while wolves fought in tight corridors, loyalist against rebel. Sarah saw faces she recognized, wolves who'd knelt before her at the ceremony now trying to kill her guards. "They're not all here by choice," she said, catching Damon's arm as he moved to engage. "Look at their eyes. Some of them are compelled." He stopped, really looking. She was right. About half the rebels moved with jerky, unnatural motions. Their eyes were glazed, distant. "Blood magic," Damon growled. "Morgana's using blood magic to control them. Can you break it?" "No. But maybe you can." He pulled her behind a pillar as a group of rebels ran past. "Your Silvermoon gifts include breaking dark magic. My mother told me stories. Stories won't help if I don't know how to actually do it. Then figure it out." His voice was urgent but not doubting. "I've seen what you can do, Sarah. You stripped a wolf of her beast. You healed dozens of people simultaneously. You can do this." She wanted to argue that those things had been instinct, that she had no idea how to consciously wield this power. But there wasn't time. The castle was burning. People were dying. So she closed her eyes and reached for the silver light inside her. It came easier this time, flowing through her veins like cool water. She extended her awareness outward, feeling for the taint of dark magic, and there, like oil slicks on clean water, she found the compulsion threads. They led back to a single source. Somewhere below them. The dungeons, Sarah breathed. She's in the dungeons. Damon's face went white. The hostages. They ran. The dungeons were older than the castle itself, carved from living stone during the first pack wars. The air was thick and damp, heavy with the weight of centuries. Sarah's wolf snarled as they descended, sensing wrongness, danger, death waiting in the shadows. They found Marcus first. He was slumped against the wall outside the holding cells, blood seeping from a head wound. Damon dropped to his knees beside his beta, checking for a pulse. He's alive, Damon said, relief flooding their bond. Unconscious, but alive. The hostages? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. The holding cell was empty. No. Damon's voice was hollow. No, no, no. Looking for something, nephew? Morgana's voice echoed from the deeper tunnels. They followed it into a vast chamber Sarah had never seen before, some ancient ceremonial space with a ceiling lost in shadow and symbols carved into every surface. Morgana stood at the center of a blood circle, her hands still glowing with dark magic. Around her, bound and gagged, were 12 young wolves. Sarah recognized them from the pack, children of both loyalists and rebels, ranging in age from 8 to 15. And behind Morgana stood 20 wolves, all with that same glazed, compelled expression. I was wondering when you'd arrive. Morgana looked remarkably composed for someone who'd been stripped of her wolf. But then, Sarah realized with cold dread, she'd found another source of power. Dark magic. Blood magic. The kind that required sacrifice. I have a proposition for you. Release them, Damon said, his alpha power rolling through the chamber. Release them now, and I'll make your death quick. Oh, I don't think so. Morgana gestured, and her compelled wolves moved to stand behind each hostage, claws at their throats. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to watch as I kill these children, one by one, and use their deaths to fuel enough dark magic to destroy this entire castle. Unless, she smiled at Sarah. Unless your precious Luna offers herself in their place. Sarah's blood turned to ice. One life for 12, Morgana continued. Quite the bargain, don't you think? Of course, if you refuse, their deaths are on your hands. The great Silvermoon heir, too selfish to save innocent children. Don't, Damon said immediately, his hand catching Sarah's. Don't even consider it. But she was considering it. How could she not? 12 children. 12 innocent lives hanging in the balance. It's a trap, Damon said desperately. She wants to break our bond, prove that I'm weak, that I'm willing to die to save others. Sarah met his eyes. Like you were willing to spare me when you should have executed me? Like you were willing to give up your throne to save your family? That's different. How? She cupped his face, feeling tears prick her eyes. How is it different, Damon? Because I love you. The words burst from him like a dam breaking. Because I just found you, and I won't. I know. She pressed her forehead to his. I love you too. That's why you have to trust me. Through their bond, she felt his agony. His desperate need to protect her warring with the knowledge that she was right, that this was the only way. That trying to make this choice for her would be exactly what Morgana wanted, would prove that he saw Sarah as something to protect rather than an equal. What are you planning? He whispered. She smiled, fierce and wild. Something stupid. Something brave. Something only a Silvermoon could pull off. That's not reassuring. Good thing you love me anyway. She kissed him, quick and claiming. Then she turned to Morgana. I accept your terms. My life for theirs. Sarah, no, Damon's hand tightened on hers. But she was already walking forward, already moving toward the blood circle. She felt his anguish through their bond, his fury and fear and desperate love. And underneath it all, she felt his trust. He wasn't stopping her. He was giving her the power to choose. Just like she'd asked. Smart girl, Morgana purred as Sarah stepped into the circle. Kneel. No. Morgana's expression flickered. Excuse me? I said no. Sarah let the silver light begin to flow from her skin, illuminating the dark chamber. You want my life? You'll have to take it. But first, you're going to release those children. I don't think you understand how this works. Oh, I understand perfectly. Sarah's voice echoed with power, with the weight of her bloodline and the strength of her bond. You're using blood magic, which means you need willing sacrifice to make it stick. Forced death won't give you nearly enough power to destroy the castle. You need me to submit. To break. To prove that the Silver Moon line is weak. Morgana's smile turned brittle. Clever. But it doesn't change anything. One way or another, I'll have enough death to fuel my magic. The only question is whether it's yours or theirs. Actually, Sarah said, there's a third option. She reached through her bond to Damon, felt him instantly understand what she needed. His power flowed into her, alpha dominance, raw and overwhelming, and she wove it together with her own silver light. The combination was devastating. Light exploded from Sarah in a wave that shattered Morgana's blood circle like glass. The compelled wolves stumbled, the dark magic holding them suddenly breaking under the force of combined alpha and silvermoon power. No! Morgana shrieked. But Sarah was already moving, already reaching for the threads of compulsion still tangling through the minds of Morgana's army. She could see them now, could see how the dark magic had dug hooks into their thoughts, their fears, their rage. One by one, she began to cut them free. It wasn't easy. Each thread she severed sent pain lancing through her skull, and there were so many of them. But she kept going, kept pushing, because these wolves deserved the same chance she'd been given. The same chance Damon had given her. You don't have to do this, she called out, her voice carrying through both speech and mind. You don't have to follow her. She's using you, manipulating you, forcing you to become monsters. But you can choose differently. You can choose to come back. The first compelled wolf stumbled, blinking, awareness flooding back into their eyes. Then another. Then another. Morgana was screaming now, trying to hold her spell together, but it was crumbling. The blood magic couldn't stand against the combined power of a true mate bond, couldn't withstand the force of two alpha bloodlines united. Damon was suddenly beside Sarah, his hands catching her as she swayed. I've got you. Keep going. So she did. She poured everything she had into breaking those compulsion threads, into offering redemption to wolves who thought they were beyond saving. And one by one, they came back. The last thread snapped, and Morgana's spell shattered completely. Her army stood in the chamber, blinking and confused, horrified by what they'd been forced to do. You think this changes anything? Morgana snarled. You think offering them mercy makes you strong? It makes you weak. Soft. Exactly like the Silvermoons who died begging for their lives. No, Sarah said quietly. It makes me different from you. And that's the point. She walked forward, Damon at her side, until they stood before Morgana. The woman looked small suddenly, diminished. Without her wolf, without her dark magic, without her army, she was just a bitter, broken female who'd let hatred consume her. I could kill you, Sarah said. For what you did to my parents. For what you did to all those girls. For what you tried to do to these children. I could end you right now, and no one would blame me. Morgana lifted her chin. Then do it. No. Sarah shook her head. Because I remember standing in an execution circle, waiting for death. And I remember the Alpha King who chose mercy instead of vengeance. Who saw past my crimes to the person I could become. She looked at Damon, feeling the love pouring through their bond. You took away your own wolf. You took away your power. Now you'll live with what you've done, knowing that the bloodline you tried to destroy is the one that saved you. I don't want your mercy. Morgana spat. I know. But you're getting it anyway. Sarah turned to the compelled wolves, the ones she'd just freed. Anyone who wants to leave the pack can do so without persecution. Anyone who wants to stay will be welcomed back, no questions asked. We start fresh. All of us. The silence that followed was profound. Then, slowly, one of the wolves knelt. Not in submission, but in gratitude. Then another. Then all of them, even the ones who'd fought against Damon, even the ones who'd wanted Sarah dead. Because mercy, true mercy, was more powerful than any dark magic. Marcus appeared at the entrance to the chamber, holding his bleeding head but standing strong. Your Majesty. Luna. The fires are out. The castle is secure. Damon nodded, his arm never leaving Sarah's waist. Take Morgana to the cells. Human cells. She'll stand trial for her crimes. As guards led a cursing Morgana away, as the hostages were freed and reunited with their families, as the compelled wolves were taken to healers, Sarah finally let herself collapse against Damon. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen, he murmured against her hair. Learned from the best. He laughed, the sound breaking something open inside both of them. We should probably address the pack. Let them know the threat is over. In a minute. She tilted her head up to kiss him, slow and deep and full of promise. First, I just want to stand here with my mate and remember that we're alive. We're alive, he agreed. And we're together. And somehow, impossibly, we won. Through their bond, she felt his wonder, his joy, his love wrapping around her like a blanket. They'd won. Not through strength or violence, but through trust. Through choosing each other, choosing mercy, choosing to be different from those who'd hurt them. Come on, Sarah said finally. Let's go tell the pack their Luna is a sap who offers redemption to everyone. Their Luna is extraordinary. Damon kissed her forehead. And I'm going to spend every day of forever reminding her of that. 3 months later. The execution ground had been transformed. Where Sarah had once knelt waiting for death, a garden now bloomed. White roses for the innocent lost. Silver moonflowers for the Silver Moon bloodline. And at the center, a memorial stone carved with the names of every girl who'd been trafficked, every victim of Morgana's hatred. Today, it would become something else entirely. A coronation ground. The entire pack had gathered, along with representatives from neighboring territories. The ceremony had been planned for weeks, a formal recognition of what everyone already knew. That Damon and Sarah weren't just mates, but true equals. Alpha King and Alpha Queen, united by bond and blood and choice. Sarah stood in the preparation chamber, smoothing down her ceremonial gown. It was silver, of course, embroidered with both the frost and silver moon symbols intertwined. The queen's pendant rested at her throat, but soon she'd wear a crown to match. Nervous? Marcus asked from the doorway. He'd become a true friend over the past months, his initial suspicion replaced by grudging respect and then genuine affection. Terrified, Sarah admitted. What if I'm not ready? What if I can't? You stopped a coup, freed a compelled army, and transformed an execution ground into a garden of remembrance. Marcus smiled. I think you can handle a coronation. Besides, Damon said, appearing behind his beta, you won't be doing it alone. He looked devastating in his formal attire, black and silver, with the Alpha King's crown already on his head. But his eyes were soft as he crossed to her, taking her hands. We do this together, he said. Like everything else. Together, she agreed. The ceremony was beautiful. Ancient words spoken under clear skies, vows renewed and expanded. When the crown was placed on Sarah's head, delicate silver inlaid with moonstones, she felt the weight of it settle like destiny. All hail the Alpha King, someone called. All hail the Alpha Queen, another voice answered. The pack erupted in celebration, howls rising to greet the afternoon sun. But Sarah barely heard them. She was too focused on Damon, on the love and pride shining in his eyes, on the bond between them that sang with joy. They'd come so far. From execution circle to coronation. From condemned prisoner to queen. From lonely king to beloved mate. They'd found each other in the darkest place and chosen light. And now. Sarah's hand drifted to her stomach, where a secret had been growing for the past month. Where new life stirred, carrying both frost and silver moon blood in equal measure. She hadn't told Damon yet. Hadn't told anyone. But soon. Soon she'd share the news that their story was just beginning. That the child she carried would be the first in generations to unite both bloodlines completely. The prophecy spoke of such a child, claimed they would either unite all packs or destroy them forever. But Sarah had learned something important over the past months: prophecies only had power if you let them. She and Damon had already defied fate once. They'd chosen mercy over vengeance, trust over fear, love over hate. Whatever came next, they'd face it the same way they'd faced everything else. Together. As equals. As mates. As the Alpha King and Queen who transformed execution grounds into gardens and turned a kingdom of fear into one of hope. The pack was still celebrating, still howling their joy to the sky. Damon pulled Sarah close, pressing his forehead to hers. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. She smiled, feeling the secret life growing inside her, feeling the future stretching ahead like an open road. "Just that I'm glad you didn't kill me." He laughed, the sound rich and full. "Best decision I ever made." "Second best," she corrected, placing his hand over her stomach where their child grew. "The best is yet to come." She felt the moment he understood. Felt his shock, his wonder, his overwhelming joy crash through their bond like a tidal wave. "Sarah," his voice broke. "Are you? We're having a baby." She said it out loud, making it real. A little moon and frost, combined. Damon dropped to his knees right there in front of the entire pack, pressing his face to her stomach with tears streaming down his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." The pack erupted again, realizing what was happening, understanding what this meant. An heir. A new generation. A future built on hope instead of fear. Sarah ran her fingers through Damon's hair, feeling complete in a way she'd never thought possible. She'd started this journey alone and broken, kneeling in an execution circle with nothing left to lose. Now she stood crowned and mated, carrying new life, surrounded by a pack that had learned to choose mercy. The execution ground turned garden bloomed around them, white roses and silver moonflowers releasing their sweet scent on the breeze. And in the distance, thunder rumbled, not a threat, but a promise. Change was coming. The kind of change that transformed kingdoms. The kind built on love, trust, and the unshakable belief that everyone deserved a second chance. Even condemned prisoners. Even broken kings. Even the future growing in Aluna's womb, carrying prophecy in their blood but writing their own destiny with every heartbeat. Together, Damon and Sarah faced that future with eyes wide open and hearts fully healed. The execution that never was had become a love story for the ages. And their story, their real story, was only just beginning. Epilogue. 6 months later, in the royal chambers. Sarah woke to morning light and the sound of Damon talking to her swollen belly. "And that's why you can't eat your cousin when you're both grown," he was saying seriously. "I don't care if he steals your toys. We use our words in this family." "Are you seriously giving our unborn child a lecture on conflict resolution?" Sarah asked, running her fingers through his hair. "Someone has to. You're the one who solved a coup by offering redemption to an army. Our kid's going to think mercy solves everything. Doesn't it?" He looked up at her, eyes soft. "In our case? Yes. But I'm trying to prepare for a child who has your stubborn streak and my tendency toward dramatic gestures. Goddess help us. Goddess help the other packs when this one comes of age." He pressed a kiss to her stomach, and Sarah felt the baby kick in response. Their child was strong, already showing signs of both bloodlines. The healers whispered about unprecedented power, about prophecies and destinies. But Sarah wasn't worried. She'd learned that destiny was what you made it. And their child would make it magnificent. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.